Well, I made it back to North Carolina. I've been back here for a couple of days. I first was down in Morehead City doing some work with the guys at NC State Seamast, and we have, I think, a really cool project going with those guys. We're looking at these marine organisms like sea squirts and bay scallops and these rib mussels and things for a lipid that's called plasmalogen. It seems to be that the plasmalogen that comes from marine organisms may have a lot of specific health benefits for our nervous system, the neurons, the things that make our brains work, amongst other things. So we got to go out and swim around and pick up some bay scallops and things before I got back here. But I love the Outer Banks, our home, many generations here, and you always appreciate it more after being gone for a while. I was in the Rocky Mountains, and the Rocky Mountains are so beautiful, and but still, I miss this place too. So it's a blessing to be able to travel and to see many places. It's very good for our brains to be able to travel and to experience new places, and then it also to come back to an old place and see it new again. So when we leave for a while and we come back to some place that we love, it's kind of like seeing it new again, and that's very good for our brains also, and experiencing life and being grateful for everything. So here, I know the wind is blowing really hard, so it's back here at P Island Refuge. I haven't seen, it's this time of year where you don't really see as much. There's no waterfowl here, and some of the summer birds, I don't know if they've really taken off yet or not, but there was a storm here before I got here, a hurricane, and a lot of times when we have a hurricane early in the hurricane season, well, really not early in the hurricane, it's kind of early in the hurricane season, it causes a lot of the migratory birds, summer birds, they kind of move on because of the hurricane, and they leave obviously because they don't want to stay through a hurricane, and then sometimes they don't come back. They go ahead and start their migration south or north or wherever they're going, south mostly, I guess, but like the ibis and all those sorts of birds. But so there's not much. A lot of times this place is full of birds, and then another. Let's see, it's almost September. This is the last weekend. Labor Day is Monday, so that's going to be September 1st, and then by October, a few of the waterfowl, so the swan and the geese start to come, and then a little bit later we start seeing the ducks and all of that kind of thing. So anyhow, but it's beautiful. It's windy, northeast wind. It's still warm. It's not real hot out, but it's still summer, and it's that humidity. As up in Colorado, it's been dry all summer, and so I guess I'm just rambling. But what I'm really hearing myself saying is just how important the environment that we're in, the real environment that we live in, is important to us. It's important to us not just because it's beautiful or because it's just how things are when we wake up in the morning and go through our day. I mean, it's because we live in it. I mean, it is part of us, and we're part of it. And so I didn't have any real specific thing I wanted to say other than just I hadn't made a video in a little bit, and I'm back, and I love this place, and I hope you love this place, and I hope that you love where you're at and where you're always at. You always have to love everywhere, and I know you're in California and Santa Barbara, and that is a beautiful place. I haven't ever even been to Santa Barbara, and I know the whales and the ocean and the hills, and it's an island also, and lots of birds and wildlife there too, and so all these places are beautiful. And I'm losing my things falling out of my ear. So everywhere we are, there's something beautiful, and you keep it, and I think being mindful. There's a thing called mindfulness, or being present and being aware. So that helps us to build memories. If we just let things pass us by, or we're thinking too much and too often about the past, or too often or too much about the future, we miss the moment. And when we miss the moment, we miss making memories. And then those memories, there's the purpose for memories. They help us kind of design and feel familiarity as we go forward. So we may be in a totally different place and doing a totally different thing, but there's a connection between our past and the present and the future. And by being present in the moment, we're kind of training our mind not only to be grateful for where we're at in this thing called life, but we're also learning, and we don't even realize it, something that will prepare us more for the future, and also things that will help us deal with the past, because the past has both, in our minds make a construction of what the past means to us. And so if you can enjoy the present moment, that means you can also be grateful for the past, because if you're grateful for the moment, the moment that you're living in, you can realize that you would not be here if it wasn't for the past and all the good, all the things that were wonderful and made you happy, but also the things that were painful. But you would not be here to enjoy now if it wasn't for that. So that's another part of being present and being mindful, so that you can kind of be able to be aware of and be able to process the things from the past because of the gratitude and the things that you have for the moment and now. This also brings up, I guess, another point that's really been on my mind, and that is technology, and how it's been around for a long time now, as far as like media technology, like electromagnetic technology, like radio and television and computers and social media and all these things that really have a big impact on us as people. And we have a very important job as an individual to not let those things overtake our minds. You have to keep your mind for yourself. And as these technologies get more powerful, they tend to the technology is just a technology, but it has the ability to replace things that our brains are capable of doing, and not necessarily, it's not good to replace that. It's good to use it as a tool, but you're going to have to be conscious about how you use these tools. So there's many examples, even going back to the early days of radio and television, of how people could kind of start to live in a fictional world because of the stories and things that they're hearing on radio and television, and then on the computers and internet and social media. And it starts to create a false reality for us, and because our reality is just as much in our mind as it is in the outside world. All of that is reality, but also we're processing all of that in our minds, right? Like everything we see and hear and feel and sense and smell and et cetera, that's all being processed in our brains. And so when we put things in our brains that aren't necessarily tangible, like they're coming from television and things like that, they're still being processed in our brains. So you have to be able to be aware of your outside world and your inner world, and be the master as much as possible of your own thinking. And so there's many examples of this. One of the great examples, I think I mentioned it before in other videos, is that with like GPS technology, taxi drivers are a great example, but just people in general. You don't have to be a taxi driver, but people develop a part of their brain that helps them navigate. And then as we start to use computers and things to help us navigate, that's okay, that's good technology. But if we just completely relied on it and didn't put the thinking and logic into it, and we just allow it to guide us around all the time, which is okay to do to a certain extent. I mean, it's nice to be able to have technology, but if you're not self-aware enough to also develop, hey, where am I really going and what am I really doing, in an age where you don't even really look at a map hardly anymore. That was one of the great things about maps, is that they made you use your brain to be the GPS. So then that part of the brain wouldn't develop, and they could actually see this. And it's like exercise for your muscles. You got to go out and exercise it, but your brain has it's not a muscle, but it's a living organism, and it has to be used in order to grow and to stay healthy. And so if you don't use your mind or parts of your brain, it's much of a struggle to get it back, to bring it back. And so artificial intelligence now is doing a lot of work that the mind is supposed to be doing, and people are letting the computers do these things, and then if they're not actually putting their own effort into it, they're actually seeing now very rapidly, this is not a slow thing, that now they're losing cognitive abilities because they're just not using that part of their brain. And there's an evolutionary reason for this. Our bodies are meant to conserve energy, and the brain is a huge consumer of energy. So if there's a part of our brain that we choose not to use, or we just rely too much on technology, our brain is going to conserve that energy, and it's not going to exercise that part of the brain. So you're going to have to be conscious going forward of how you use technology. Use it, but be a master of it. And if you see yourself putting too much reliance on the technology, stop and make yourself go back and do some work, just like you make yourself go out and jog and run or swim or do exercises. Do that for your brain too, and you'll learn more, and you'll be more. And in the long run, it'll mean that you can use the technology more efficiently, because if your brain can do the work, then when you use the technology, you actually understand what you're trying to get out of the technology, and now the technology becomes more of a partner than it does a master of you. So that's a big thing too. But anyhow, it's a long video, but I love you. I haven't made a video in a little while, and be grateful for every day that you're here on earth, and be present and mindful. Love you.